more people.
Maybe you can flash our flyer on the screen here. While we're waiting. So people will know where they're at. Okay. Hey,
Share screen. Yeah.
all right, it's 2:00, so yeah. Okay, for everybody that's tuned in right now, we're gonna be waiting maybe 1 or 2 more minutes to let other people come in. So you're in the right place for Talk Story. We're gonna be, the subject today is Bitty Bao, and we'll be on in maybe 2 minutes.
Lacey, can you see the image on the Zoom screen?
Yes,
Okay.
Bitty Bao Talk Story, the social media posts that we put up.
Thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Okay, good afternoon, everyone, or morning, maybe if you're out in California. So welcome to our Talk Story event. That's produced by our 1882 Foundation. I'm Stan Liu, one of Talk Story directors with the 1882 Foundation located in Washington, D.C. We've been hosting these events at least once a month since originating in 2012. We began always being live in Washington, D.C. Chinatown, but went virtually online with the coronavirus pandemic beginning in March 2020 until early in 2023. And now we're trying to do a hybrid combination, live and online. So we are live streaming on Facebook and recording. And if you're not comfortable with being seen and heard virtually, then turn off your camera and participate through the chat box. The audience will be muted during the program. You can be unmuted during the open discussion and question and answer session. To ask questions, enter them in the chat box. Our associates will be overseeing this to see that they're addressed by our moderator and presenters. As a matter of fact, we invite you now to use the chat box to greet one another and let us know where you're calling from and joining us from. So get on the chat box and exchange pleasantries. The 1882 Foundation is dedicated to promoting, uncovering, understanding, and sharing our American stories. We've been a regular feature in our DC AAPI community since 2012. This is the gathering of our community, our friends, our allies, to share stories of our lives, our history, hopes and ambitions, trials and tribulations, and our dreams. We found that the strength of our community lies in the power of the stories we share with each other and in our own voices. And we invite you to partner with us through your participation and support. Our website is 1882foundation.org. We have many partners and collaborators and co-conspirators, if you will. Some of those partners are OCA, CACA, the Chinese American Citizens Alliance, the DC Chinatown Service Center and Community Church, the Smithsonian Center, and we thank them all for being our partners. And I would like to acknowledge that today that representing the 1882 Foundation in our office are our director, Ted Gong, co-director, our Amy, and we have Ellen, an associate, and we have also Estella and Izzy. So we're glad you're all here, and then they're helping with the presentations and the production here. So, but today we're really honored to continue our storytelling through this, what we call our Bitty Bao talk story. We'll have an explanation on that title a little bit later, but just sort of introduce the program. It's going to be Lulu Cheng and Lacey Bernard, and when these two determined and passionate educators became moms of young children and found themselves empty-handed while searching for bilingual material to support their own children and feeling connected to their own culture and language, they set out to create their own. What began as a passionate project for their own children, it blossomed into a small, successful business that it is today. And many other families shared similar goals and challenges in raising bilingual children. Since Bitty Bao was founded in 2020, over 90,000 Chinese bilingual books across 16 titles have been sold at bookstores, libraries, and families worldwide. Lacey and Lulu have learned everything that makes this mighty small business grow, and they continue to grow it. And so I'm going to turn this program over to Lacey and Lulu to tell us about the business and themselves and how they got going and how it's growing and what it means to them. So Lacey and Lulu, take it over.
Thank you so much. Well, good morning, everyone, or good afternoon. We are so excited to be here with you all and have an opportunity to share a little bit more about Bitty Bao and how it came about. We'll be giving you a little bit of a preview of our small business and what we do and what we create. And then at the end, definitely opening up the floor to any questions that you may have. We're happy to share more. And at any point, if you have any wonderings, feel free to interrupt us via the chat by typing in your questions, and we're happy to kind of pivot and make this session as personable for all of you. So my name is Lacey, and Lulu is my co-founder of Bitty Bao. We started Bitty Bao accidentally. It was never supposed to be a small business, and we weren't supposed to have more than 2 books. But here we are many years later, and now it's just like this crazy machine that just won't stop. So the way that Bitty Bao came about, Lulu and I met decades ago as elementary school teachers in Los Angeles. We ended up becoming friends, and eventually we even roomed together for a little bit. And then we went different ways as life takes us. Lulu got married, had kids. Years later, I did the same. And we got reconnected when I had a daughter, and she wasn't sleeping through the night, and it was a nightmare and a half. Lulu taught me how to sleep train my daughter, which was like saving grace. And one of the days when she was checking in on me, just like, hey, how are things going? It was in the middle of the night. And she said that she had been thinking about making some books just as a hobby. And I was like, okay, that sounds great. And then Lulu said, it's going to be like a no time hobby. It's going to be super easy. And I was like, oh, great. No time hobby. I have a newborn. That sounds like a wonderful plan. Spoiler alert, it's not a no time hobby. And we spend like 24 hours a day, 365 a year on it. But it's been very, very rewarding, very, very stressful, but very fulfilling all the same. So I'll let Lulu kind of talk about what her motivation for Bitty Bao was and why, bilingual books were a thing. And then I'll follow up on my end of my perspective of why Bitty Bao resonates with me and my family too.
Thank you, Lacey. Hi, everyone. So I'm Lulu, and I grew up mainly in Taiwan. My parents are still living in Taiwan, and when I had kids, it was one of the top priorities to keep the language alive because my parents didn't live near us in any shape or form. So using FaceTime was the only thing to have a connection between my parents and my children. And with FaceTime, you can't hug them. You can't, give them a gift. You can't go to the zoo with them, and you can't plant flowers. So our only source was to bring the phone with us everywhere we went and try to incorporate my parents and them together in their daily life as much as we could. But of course, that meant understanding Mandarin. The language was really important in order for them to have any sort of communication and to be able to tell each other what happened during the day. We started out really simple with just, maybe a book, right? And then we added on and we started to cook in the kitchen, and we did it with my parents. But at the end of the day, a lot of it was my responsibility. I was the only one speaking Mandarin. My husband's family speaks Cantonese and English. They're fully communicating in English. All the cousins speak English, nothing else. My daughter was the one that spoke Mandarin and couldn't communicate with any of her cousins. It was great, but nonetheless, it was worth it. It was meaningful, and it was really important for me that even if my children went to the school system in the US, that Chinese was still very much alive in our home in order to keep this relationship with my parents. And also when we travel back to Taiwan, that they don't feel foreign and they feel that they can be part of the everyday life, the culture, speaking to, the stalls and the stores and, shop like the locals, right? So that's really how Bitty Bao started, because I taught my kids Chinese and we realized that there weren't that many books around in our local libraries, let alone in bookstores. It was very hard to bring any resources over without paying astronomical shipping costs. And I just needed more books. I needed books that showed my kids that they are represented, that the language is okay to be spoken not only within the home, but outside of the home. There were moments where my children would ask me to speak English outside because we're not at home anymore, or grandpa's not on the phone, so I really wanted them to be proud of who they are, and to know that having two languages is a superpower. So anyway, I reached out to Lacey because in order to keep our language alive, I often used our old pictures and I just created like a little printout storybook that we created at home with my kids to just practice Chinese. And that's really how the idea blossomed into making books. And that's how Lacey got involved when I knew her strength in paper cutting was super special. And she was like, I am not a real artist. And I said, that's even better. Like it makes us even more special. So
Lulu's very easy to please. She's like, whatever you make is great. Let's do that.
yeah. So that's my side of my language journey. And I know Lacey has a very personal side to it and how it resonates with her. So we'll bring it back to Lacey.
Yeah, whereas Lulu is a native speaker, I am third generation Chinese American. My grandparents immigrated over here when they were super young, and they learned English and Spanish right away. They had a restaurant in East LA for years and years and years. So to talk to their customers as well as their employees, they picked up and assimilated language very quickly. So they only passed down English to my parents' generation. And then when we were born, obviously my grandparents were able to speak English. So for me growing up, I had pretty much zero connection with being Chinese other than we celebrate Chinese New Year. Like very, very basic. Like the suburb I grew up in had, a mixture of different families there, but I mean, not tons of Asians in general. So growing up, I didn't even think about my roots or where I came from. I didn't like my mom tells this story that when I was in kindergarten, someone said to me, like, oh, you're Chinese. And I was like, oh, we're all Chinese. And I like wrapped my arms around like two white boys and like, a Hispanic girl. Like I had no idea what that meant because that wasn't something that my family talked about. And I think it talks about generationally, right? Like now raising my children, and Lulu alluded to it as well. We're proud of being Chinese, and these are the things that we celebrate, and these are, the things that our family, experiences, and where these are the foods we eat, these are the traditions we have. Whereas when I was growing up, it was very like washed over, I guess we'll say. So growing up, it wasn't until I got to college, and it sounds kind of crazy, but it wasn't until I got to college and I was taking a conflict resolution class, and the professor had us take this survey, and it was about, how you deal with conflict. And then we had to chart like in front of the whole class, like you put your little name, post it with your name on the chart, like what quadrant you ended up in. And all the Asians ended up in one quadrant. And I was like, what is happening? What does this mean? And, it's just like indirect, conflict style. And so it was the first time I was like, oh, there's something to this. I like really, it was just one of those aha moments. And it took me until I was 20 something, right? So, fast forward when I had my children, I now have two. I have a 5 and a 3-year-old. It's so cliche, but you want something more, right? You want more for your children than you had for yourself. You want to fill the gap that, you never had, whether it's in your identification of your identity or, your cultural upbringing or like understanding where you come from. So obviously without language in my back pocket, I'm relying on Chinese bilingual schools. Our school system has a Chinese immersion program. We're very lucky. So my kids will be enrolled in that. We listen to, audio and, on Pandora, and we listen to, Netflix, and we change the language, and Disney Plus. Like there's so many resources available for us. So for me, being part of Bitty Bao and being able to create products and resources for other families like Lulu's that are trying to maintain language and culture, as well as families like mine that are trying to regain and, educate our families and to provide all the extra scaffolds for all the families to access this information has been very fulfilling and very exciting. And we're learning a lot over here as we go. So with that, I think Lulu, do you want to share like a quick screen share of a sample of our book so we can kind of point out some of the features and how it's helpful for families? And then again, if you guys have any questions of things you want to know as we go, it'll be
I'm gonna
great to answer things you care about.
do the first screen share, which is to show. Oh, sorry. Hold on. Let me see. Do you mind if I just here? I'll screen share this. Okay. This is one of our books. Sorry, I can't see anybody. Stop me and talk to me if you need something. So this is one of our books, and this tag particularly is a green tag, and it says that it's Mandarin with traditional characters. It has zhuyin and pinyin. So if you look at this book, it shows the zhuyin, which is the small little phonic characters next to the traditional characters, and the pinyin are the romanization of the characters to help you pronounce the words if you use pinyin system. So we also have two other language systems. We have the Mandarin with simplified characters, and we also have traditional characters for Cantonese speakers. But today I'm going to actually just go ahead and read one of our books. This is Celebrating Chinese New Year, 过新年, because although Christmas is coming and Thanksgiving and Halloween, so we're going backwards, but like the next super big Chinese holiday is Chinese New Year. And so we can all think about that too in the year of the snake. Okay, so 过新年, celebrating Chinese New Year. So 快过新年了, Chinese New Year is coming. And all of those pictures around are vocabulary words to learn later on in the book. Okay, so 姐姐, 我和姐姐帮忙大扫除. Big sister and I help spring cleaning. 我和弟弟把橘子和苹果放在桌上. Little brother and I place oranges and apples on the table. 爸爸帮我剪头发. Daddy helps me cut my hair. 我和妈妈一起买新衣服. Mommy and I shop for new clothes. 我和哥哥一起贴春联. Big brother and I hang red spring couplets together. 我和妹妹一起包饺子. Little sister and I make dumplings together. 我们向外公外婆说新年快乐. We say Happy New Year to Grandpa and Grandma. 爷爷奶奶发红包给我们. Grandpa and Grandma hand out red envelopes to us. 我们兄弟姐妹一起放鞭炮过年. The siblings light up firecrackers for the new year. And at the very, very back of our book, we have a family tree for Chinese New Year because all of our books have a nonfiction page at the back. And I'll let Lacey talk more about the nonfiction page, but I also wanted to make note that this book for Chinese New Year, a lot of people ask like, why is it Chinese New Year? Or my family doesn't celebrate it the same way as what's written in the book. So I just wanted to point out that this tradition or the cultures that are written in the book was primarily from how I grew up, and it was part of my family's tradition. Some people put red envelopes under their pillows. My parents never did that. They just didn't want money under the pillow. And then, you know, some people don't cut their hair before Chinese New Year. They actually cut it like weeks in advance just because it's too close to, you know, the new year and they don't want to cut off the lucky stuff, right? So There are a little bit different traditions maybe from one family to another. And I always remind other families also that it's kind of like Christmas, right? Some families open on Christmas Eve, some family open on Christmas Day, some families have trees and some don't, or some don't even celebrate Christmas, right? So just wanted to keep that in mind that some of the rituals and traditions could be different, but we all celebrate it and have a wonderful time. And we wish everyone good luck and a happy new year. Oh, and one last thing, on the very, very, very back of our book, we have a QR code. And this QR code, when you scan it, it takes you to audio listenings of the book. And when you scan it, you can also choose between Mandarin and Cantonese. And then Lacey wants to talk a little bit about our nonfiction pages in our books.
Yes, that's what I would like to talk about. So as teachers, Lulu and I are like so picky about books. So we know that shelf space is so little, you know, the things that you bring into your home or in your classrooms, you just want them to have as much value as it can. So as teachers ourselves, we made sure that all of our books kind of double up in value. So one, or I would say triple up actually. So there's the language component. There is, you know, there's a learning component. So in this book particularly, it focuses on family members. And so all of our books, we try to have as much information and resources as possible so that they are beneficial to families. So for instance, we have a Counting with Dim Sum book. It has numbers, but then also it's in, oh, thanks, Lulu. It has numbers, but then it also has different dim sum items. Yeah, I think you had to put it in front of your face. Yeah, there we go. And then at the end, it has real life pictures of dim sum to one, make you hungry, but two, it's so cute because we see families take this book with them to dim sum, and they often say like, oh, my child was like so excited to try turnip cake for the first time because it's in their book. Like it makes children feel like a connection to the book and like more likely to risk take or get excited about things. Kim made a comment in the chat about the art, and Lulu kind of alluded to it, but all of our art is paper cutting. So like little bits of paper cut out and layered together. I often do in the middle of the night while my kids are sleeping. But if you look really closely at it, you'll see, you know, the like layers of paper together. You'll see like the mistakes. Which I think makes it quirky and fun. All I use is literally scrapbook paper, a pair of scissors, and a Sharpie. And that's all of our art, all of our art together. So are we good to open up for questions at this point? Or is there anything, panel, that you want us to address specifically that we haven't yet?
Want to comment as you are reading the books. We have your books here in the office, and so we were sharing it and looking and reference, and it is really fun. I think you made an upgrade in doing the jyutping and for some of the books too. Is that right? Yeah.
Yes.
So the older books didn't have that, but Ted earlier made a comment with me that, you know, that's what we were familiar with when we were learning Chinese initially. And then, you know, of course, with the progression with the pinyin, and now that you have both, it makes it really easy for, you know, those who are trying to learn the language. So that's really cool. And it's fun. Like you said, with the counting with dim sum, we were looking at it here too when you were talking about it. And I know you had a Cantonese version. We have the Mandarin here, but there's a Cantonese series that you have. And I think that's real fun too, to just look at the different ways to pronounce it.
Yeah, we actually have 3 versions. We started with traditional characters in Mandarin, since that's what Lulu teaches her children and what she's most comfortable with. And then we were getting a ton of requests for simplified because 85% of the dual immersion schools in the United States teach simplified. So Lulu and I, being the teachers that we are, we couldn't deny people books if they wanted books. So we made simplified books in addition to our traditional books. And then people started asking us for Cantonese, and we're like, that's over our head. That's so much. But we couldn't turn people away. So we made an interest form online and we just posted on our Instagram, and then people were sharing it. And within a month and a half, there were 400 families signed up on our interest form wanting Cantonese. So Lulu and I definitely couldn't ignore 400 families. So we made a third version. So now we do all of our titles have these 3 different versions available.
Yeah, no, I think that's great because initially I was interested in the Bitty Bao series because of the Cantonese. It's because there is very limited resource when it comes to bilingual Cantonese and English. And like Lulu was saying, it's like if you go to Asia, you're coming home with like tons of books and that takes you over the weight limit. And so it's not practical at all. But yeah, no, this has been really inspiring that you've been able to do this and then continue to make the improvements and upgrades to them.
Yeah. Oh, there's Ella. That's Lulu's daughter. No, yeah, so Cantonese it is our third version that we came out with, but it has been amazing just the strength of the Cantonese community and how motivated and engaged they are. And when we have new products come out, when they see us at events, like the excitement and support that they provide us in terms of feedback and encouragement has been so helpful. At the end of the day, Lulu and I, do have small children at home, and sometimes our small business gets kind of in the way of our lives. So it is always wonderful to hear this positive feedback and this love, to know that, the things that we're doing in the middle of the night are translating to other families as ways that they can connect generationally, but also, with culture and language in ways that they didn't feel were possible for them before.
Yeah.
Okay, friends, what questions may you have? Tell me.
Peggy wanted us to show a little bit more of the Cantonese version. You know what? Here, let me share one screen here. This is so different. Sorry, guys. Okay. So, you guys see the 3 language versions? Okay. So, as I read was the traditional characters with zhuyin and pinyin. I also grew up learning zhuyin, so that was my way of learning new characters. And then our simplified characters, it's the pink tag. And it doesn't have zhuyin anymore. It only has pinyin with it, with the simplified characters. And our last one is the Cantonese, which is the traditional characters with jyutping. So this is how they are differentiated between the same word, dunlong, for lantern. And in the Cantonese, we are using the jyutping with it. Peggy has a question.
Hi, yes, actually, my name is Peggy. I'm actually a founder of a Cantonese school in the DMV area. So I'm just kind of curious of your Cantonese version. Like, what kind of vocabulary do you use? Because, a lot of time the Cantonese vocabulary used very differently. Like, strawberry, like in Mandarin would be chao mei, but in Cantonese would be si do bele. But so in your books, would you put like what type of vocabulary do you put in there? Like,
So actually, I don't speak Cantonese, and we have a Cantonese translation team that helps us with our translations, and also for simplified, because I also don't read simplified, I read traditional. But I believe our Cantonese is more of the colloquial, like the way you speak, versus the academic way, if that makes sense. So for example, for hot pot,
mm-hmm,
usually we say 火锅,
mm-hmm.
but the Cantonese title says 打冰炉.
Okay, that's awesome.
So that's the
Because
only
actually,
way
yeah, we
people
have
like
we
differentiate.
Yeah, that's quite a different because we have adopted a publisher that is from California, and the textbooks is using traditional characteristic with the characters, but unfortunately they're still written in the Mandarin way.
Mm.
So when it comes to when we're doing our lecture, we pretty much we use the book, though we
Yeah.
cross out a lot of stuff in there.
Yeah.
So that's why I would like to know what kind of vocabulary do you use, and then also like and the text that you guys using, um, does people adopt it to use it for like lecture use or more like leisure, story reading?
Yeah, so definitely leisure story reading, but we have had a school district, Lulu, I don't remember the state, I'm so sorry, but we did have a school district reach out to us to um to license the rights to print our book within their textbook. And it wasn't a Chinese or like a Mandarin immersion school or a Cantonese immersion school. It was just like a regular school district that wanted more diverse books and
Mhm.
stories in there. So we do work on licensing. If that's something that your district wants to talk about, we definitely can. There are, like you're asking about what vocabulary we use in our books. If you go onto our website, there are actually, sample images of our books. You can also see them on, do you have Instagram? On
Yes.
Instagram, we post a lot. So
Okay.
I would definitely say go on our Instagram and scroll through, and I have different titles up there that you can see. But yeah, and on Instagram, so I'm not sure if you're familiar with Rock and Rhyme. It's it's an Instagram account headed by Evelyn, who is the head of our translation team. So she runs a Cantonese music class out of Canada, and it's online as well as in person. And then so she curated a team, and she works hand in hand with us to translate our books.
It's awesome because actually I do find that it's hard to adopt a book from overseas to use it for a student because a lot of the events and stuff are not relevant.
Yeah.
So instead, I would love to have a book that is more like the state related, so the kids would be easier to learn and get to use the language easier. So
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you.
Well, send us in. I'll put our email in the chat. But send us a message, Peggy, and we'll chat offline.
Okay, sure. Thank you.
And that's so cool that you're open to ideas and feedback for new products.
Well, I think that's the thing is like, especially as a small business, but as like moms and as teachers, you want things to be relevant to your audience, right? And so you can definitely have an idea for something, but if no one wants it, or if it doesn't resonate with anyone, you're just kind of making things and having thousands of copies for no reason, right? So it is beneficial to kind of, pivot and move based off of what you see and hear and what people are asking for. And I think in that regard, then the payout on the back end is so much greater because people are so excited about what you're doing. So it makes the creation process so much more fulfilling.
Right. I think there was another question in the chat about the business LNP school. Could you describe more of the creation process of writing and illustrating each book?
Yeah, so Lulu and I always start with what is something that we really like, or what would we want a book about? Hence why there's so many food books in the Bitty Bao collection, because obviously we're obsessed with hot pot and boba and dim sum. So we write books about that, but we also think about what are things that for our kids do we really, really want to have. So the boba emotion book, which I see on your table, is a book that is definitely one of our best sellers, but it was a delight / nightmare to put together. It's a delight because we all love boba. Lulu and I, right from the beginning, we knew we wanted to make a boba book, but it was a nightmare because we had this brilliant idea to make it about emotions. And I don't know about your Chinese families, but my Chinese family and Lulu's Chinese family are not very proficient in their social emotional vocabulary and how they express their emotions. So it was a really, really interesting process as we wrote this book about emotions and running it through our different levels of translation teams. The last page of that book, which Lulu will show us, has 64 emotion words written all on a scale. And it was interesting because when we went through translation, our translators were getting into fights with each other and also Lulu. And then Lulu would come back and tell me, and as an English speaker, I just don't understand. But, Lulu's like, they kind of just want to put like happy, very, very happy, sad, very sad, very, very sad. And I was like, those aren't words. Like, and it goes back to what Peggy was saying, right? Like, for our children being raised here in the United States, we want them to have this vocabulary that's really robust in different things that maybe is not the same as the vocabulary that they're using overseas or in different regions, right? So that was a very, very challenging book for us to put together. But I think for us, in terms of going back to the question of how do you create your books, it really has to come up. And I think this is our advice to anyone that wants to create anything, is you follow your passion, right? What is something that's really, really important to you? And when you create it, then that love and that care and that importance will shine through. So that's pretty much how all of our books come to be. It's just, these are holes in our own personal libraries that we really, really want. And so there must be other people out there that want that too. And those have been the books that have done the best for us. We have started expanding Bitty Bao, though I think this is a good transfer point, is we have started expanding Bitty Bao. We now are also signing outside authors and illustrators under our brand name. So we've become a publishing house, and helping to bring other people's stories to life. We just had our first picture book. Lulu, you're so good. Like Vanna White. Like without Q and everything. This is our first picture book. It was written by Bay Area authors Ling Lee and Eric Lee. They're a husband and wife duo, with two young sons of their own, that wrote the story of The Legend of Chang'e, which is a story of the Mid-Autumn Festival. It has gorgeous illustrations done by Rachel Fu. And from here on out, every season, we will have more and more picture books by people other than Lacey and Lulu. Same thing, it has the QR code with the audio as well. Thanks, Lulu.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I see Kim has a question asking if we'll be expanding to Vietnamese or other Asian languages. Kim, you asked the question that we get every single time we do a pop-up, and we do a lot of pop-ups. At this point, we're sticking with Chinese because one, that's what we know, but two, our bandwidth is only so much. Would it be a dream to be able to get to the point where we can expand Bitty Bao to be, this monster Asian languages publishing house? That would be amazing. But in this moment, that's not where we're at yet. But who knows? If anyone's crazy enough to do it, it would be us.
That's awesome.
What other things may you all want to know?
Well, I really appreciate your telling your personal stories of it, but I'd be curious to know, have you discovered any striking demographics of the audience that you're attracting? I mean, like you two are sort of different, totally different, fifth generation Chinese American and an immigrant from Taiwan. So, I mean, is there a special demographic that you're appealing to that feel like they have a need for bilingual books?
Yeah, so we definitely do, I would say 95% of our personal marketing off of social media. So Instagram and Facebook. Facebook is an amazing resource for families and individuals, but also businesses to connect with like-minded individuals. So for instance, there's Facebook groups that are, raising bilingual children in Mandarin, modern Cantonese parents, modern Asian moms. There's so many different groups. And if any of you are looking for a community online, like go onto Facebook, click on the groups little tab at the top and type in like anything you want. Like if you're into crochet, if you're into gardening, like there's a group for everyone. And you can also do it localized. So, like Orange County Asian moms, like there's a group for that. So what's been nice for us in terms of getting into communities is that we're literally able to search general communities and then share what we're doing. And then we've just been very, very lucky in that consumers or customers that have purchased our items often will gift it to others. They'll share pictures of it online and then, they'll share it with others. So we're, I think our little tiny small business has grown because of the love of community around us. I do think that if we were to break down the demographics, I think what I surmise is most families are accessing our books are more so like me. They're American born, language is not fluent. Some of them might have spots of language, but really do need the pinyin. They really do need the jyutping. They need the audio files. And the reason why I think that bigger part of our demographic of consumers is similar to me versus Lulu is because Lulu does have access to going to Taiwan. She can have, her parents to send her books. But in addition, Lulu can read Chinese fluently, so she doesn't need the English in her books. And considering that she's living in an English dominant society, she actually would want her kids to only see the Chinese versus like I, as a parent reading a Chinese book, would need the English to understand the context of what's happening. But, in terms of school, similar like to what Peggy is saying, like, my daughter's school is a Mandarin immersion program. She's currently in kindergarten. They have to learn English, obviously, and like how to read, but they also do need to learn Chinese. So bilingual books are great for that because it does have those two different parts of them that the kids can go back and forth and use in tandem to support their learning journey in both regards.
I did kind of have a question. Because your guys' like upbringings were so different, being an Asian American and immigrant, how did that serve as a challenge when writing these books? And like, I guess the business model too, like, were there any challenges in creating this business?
Lulu feels challenged working with me each and every day. We have very different takes on the world and communication styles. And even just when we were making our snow ice book, she was like, she listed out her items that she wanted. And one of them was mochi. And I was like, great. So I like cut and draw like mochi that I would see at like Pinkberry. She's like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. Like those are different things, right? And so now she will because American Lens, right? So now she'll like send me emails of pictures of things like this is what it looks like to have like enoki wrapped beef. And I was like, oh, that looks delicious. Like I've never had that, right? So it's definitely challenging for her to work with me, but I'll let Lulu explain more on the business end what is different working between the two of us.
Well, we've mentioned before, we are teachers to begin with. So all of the business stuff was really a lot of Googling, YouTubing, and asking everyone around us who's run a business or even specialize in a certain category. So, website was a lot of Googling and YouTubing, and then realizing, oh my gosh, I need to charge sales tax. And what does that even mean? What does that even look like on the back end? And then understanding that there's sales tax in every different county and state, and the website didn't do that. So I had the, the luck of inputting every single sales tax by manually, like by zip code. But those are like things that we make it work. We make it work, whatever it is that we need to do. And we ask a lot of questions. So, when it comes to learning about like shipping or logistics, I, reached out to all my friends that work at a logistics company and asked them, how does this work? What do these terms mean? And to this day, I still can't remember all the terms because they're all in acronyms, and it's just not the language that I speak. And I always ask them, can you say that in plain English? Like, I don't know what that means. So you just really start reaching out to a lot of different friends as well to see where their strengths are and how they can help you. You don't always meet people that are helpful in terms of their answers, but when you piece it all together, then you're like, oh, I think I have a bigger picture, and just really be willing to ask questions and be vulnerable as well. I think if people know that you are putting yourself out there, they're actually more willing to help. And, there's always the preface of, I can't pay you your hourly rate, but can we get coffee, right? Can we talk about this over a meal? Or those are some of the harder sides of like figuring things out with our small business.
It's interesting, like our journey has been really fascinating because Lulu and I are not classically trained in business, right? We're educators. So like with education, your students arrive at your door every single day and they have to come 180 days, right? Like there is no marketing of it. There is no like, oh, here's a special deal, please come in. It's like everyone has to come. So the learning curve for small business for us has been very challenging. Lulu has some friends that are from the small business world, and she has some family members that are definitely more finance minded, whereas my family, like, that's not our venue at all. So I say that in terms of, for us to be able to build Bitty Bao to the place that it has been, right? 90,000 books and plus sold, sold worldwide. Like if you have that like fire in you, you can make it happen, right? Like we literally have no tools in our tool belt that should have translated into us succeeding at this. So I think that just shows that, if you have that tenacity and that mind for like looking for resources and you're willing to ask questions and, be humble about it, people do want to watch you succeed. They do. If you care about your product that you're making, they are willing to, reach out a hand or, share information or provide, contacts. So it really is about putting yourself out there and just knowing that you don't know everything. And my favorite question to ask people is always, what question do you think I should ask that I'm not asking yet? Right? Because there's so many times you leave a conversation and you're like, oh, maybe I should have asked this. If only I have known, but they know what you should be asking. So that's a really good question to just file in your little brain. What question should I ask that I am not asking yet?
Do you have a process where you deal with libraries and so forth, or school districts? So that if I approach the Martin Luther King Library and ask librarians, why did you buy the whole set of books for all the libraries in the system? Do you have a process or channel by which we can do that?
So 2 years ago, Lulu, is this accurate? 2 years ago, we entered into a strategic partnership with a Spanish bilingual company called Lil Libros. Lil Libros was created by two moms in the LA area about 10 years ago, and they were at the forefront of breaking into the mainstream market with Spanish bilingual books. We entered into a strategic partnership with them 2 years ago, which got us into mass distribution. Part of mass distribution is getting into Ingram as well as Baker and Taylor, which is like the catalog that the overarching catalog that the majority of libraries use to purchase books. So we are available to all librarians, but it's a matter of being seen by them, like for them to know to like look for us, right? To know to search in their catalog Chinese bilingual books, which a lot of people don't even know is a thing, right? So because of that, Lulu and I go to a lot of conferences. One of the big ones for librarians is called ALA, American Library or Librarian?
Library,
Library.
library.
American Library Association. And we set up a little booth and all the librarians walk by and, hi, let us show you our Chinese bilingual books, right? Like this is a thing, right? So it's a lot of, feet to the ground marketing, and then directing them to where they can purchase. ALA has been great for us in that we've gone to meet a ton of contacts. But Chinese bilingual books are very interesting in terms of a lot of it. We're still training the market. I think that's a good way to put it. A lot of people, and even just consumer, I feel like a lot of people walk by and say like, oh, that's not for me. Like, oh, I love your books, but my school doesn't have any, Chinese people, so we don't need those, right? And so it's been a really fascinating conversation that Lulu and I have had. We've even had like, we've been at pop-ups and, Chinese people have walked by and said like, oh, I don't read Chinese, I can't buy your book, right? It's been very fascinating in terms of our own conversations about what roles do books play, what roles do books and products play, toys, art, that help to diversify our outlook and our children's outlook on the world that they live in, right? Like just because you are not, a particular ethnicity, does that mean that you cannot look at a book about that ethnicity, right? Like you can't read a book with characters that don't look like you, right? So it's been a really fascinating conversation that we've had ongoing, right? And a very interesting, like we've done panels about diversity and inclusion and what that looks like and how like these little things matter, right? Like just seeing different characters in books with different color hair and like, doing different things that may be special to their own homes and how that changes the lens of our own kids in, acceptance and, accepting others. So it's just a fascinating conversation, I think. But yes, we are trying to get into as many libraries as possible. And if ever you context, send them our way.
Yeah, so you are in the system and we can introduce our local library system.
Yes.
You up. And
Yes, we would love that. We would love that. Yes, we're in Baker and Taylor. That's where the majority of libraries purchase anyway. So it's very streamlined for them.
I see there's one last question and we can wrap things up. Would you guys consider publishing longer bilingual books for older elementary school students?
I'm assuming that's more like, so we are moving into picture books. So those are coming down the pipeline slowly. Like Lulu's daughter you saw in her frame a little bit ago, and she also has a son that's older, or well, younger than Ella, but older than my two. So we are moving into picture books because that's kind of where they are landing. But in terms of like chapter books, if that's the question, I mean, I have no idea. Maybe one day, but who knows? I don't know what that would look like for us. We, as long-term as we are in our projects, we're about 2 years ahead in our projects. Like we're working on projects for 2 years from now. I don't know what we'll be at in 5 years, 10 years. It goes fast.
Engage you in Chinese American history books or something like that. Road workers, maybe there would be a special series.
Yeah. I mean, the sky's the limit, right? I think that's the thing is, there is always going to be a need for high quality, well thought out, bilingual education books. Like my daughter's Mandarin immersion program, it goes all the way through high school. And I know that, even at the elementary school level, they definitely do struggle with, do we have enough resources? Like what other things can we bring in? But then at the middle school and the high school level, right, there's, a different kind of need, right? So I don't know where we'll end up, but again, like similar to the question about like, will we ever go into other Asian languages? If anyone's crazy enough to do it, it's Lacey and Lulu.
Thank you both for your time today. I'm gonna hand it back to Stan to wrap up and
Okay. Well, yeah,
close our.
again, it's been very educational for all of us, Lacey and Lulu. Yeah, I think you reached reason I asked about demographics is that we're always interested in expanding our outreach and we have an active education program here in the 1882 Foundation, which is headed by one of our staff members, Tingy Uwe. And but we're working a lot of K through 12 curriculums. So somehow we can get your books to fit into our curriculum. Maybe we can arrange something like that. But in the meantime, I don't know what other demographics you are going to be targeting. You said you're looking for bilingual families now, but are they mostly multi-generational Asian American, or are they new immigrants, or
I
what?
think it's all over the spectrum, right? We get a lot of customers that are grandparents buying for, their daughter-in-law, their son, their, the new baby that's being born. We get a lot of families that are entering into a dual immersion program for the first time. We get a lot of outreach from, enrichment, like Saturday Chinese schools. I think anyone that knows a child within the age of, like in belly all the way up to, 8, we definitely, and as we're moving into picture books, that number will increase higher. They do resonate. And it's interesting because we didn't talk about it much today, but we do have some wooden toys that we have custom designed to match our books. And our toys definitely do resonate with a much larger audience because there's no text in them, right? So everyone can relate to food toys, right? We have a dragon boat pull toy. We have a, dim sum set. So we definitely do connect with a lot of libraries in that regard because a lot of their outreach or a lot of their programs are in hopes for inclusion and diversity through play and through reading. So yeah, I mean, there's a very wide spectrum. And again, like we would love to be connected with anyone that you think may be interested. And yeah, and support you all however we can as well.
Okay, and I guess maybe one final question I have is who came up with the name Bitty Bao, and
Oh,
and what's sort of the story behind that?
yeah. Lulu can
Wow,
answer that.
my Chinese isn't that good at all, but bao is the steam roll. That's all I know.
Yeah.
Lacey came up with it. She drew, well, so bao has like two, meanings in Chinese when it's written in English. It's like a pun. So bao is like our logo bao that Lacey's wearing. And it could be a bun, like a baozi. But then I also call our kids like bao bao, which is baby. And then there's also bao, like xiao bao, yuan bao, like it's like treasure, right? So the term Bitty Bao came about as written for our kids but food related. So there's like the baby bun that is, resonating with more people. So that's how our name came about. And Lacey drew the logo and I was like, great, perfect, let's go. Let's run
Yeah,
with it. We're done.
Again, she's very easy to please.
She gave me like 20 iterations of this bow, and I'm staring at them like, what's the difference between all 20 of them? You need to just pick one and roll with it. So that's, yeah, it was a fun week too.
So someday you should put that as an Instagram post, the original bow.
Will do, will do.
Okay, well, thanks again. Thank you for your time
Thank you.
Thank
And-
you.
and introducing our community to a neat form of educating bilingual system here. So
Thank you.
Lacey and Lulu, thank you so much. Thanks for contacting us and doing all your work on this today, and it's great for our community. I'll turn it over to Ted, for our director, if he has any final words.
Our upcoming event, right, Ted?
Yeah,
The next upcoming event next week is our My China Roots workshop. Anybody's interested in doing a little bit of genealogy work, learning about their family history. That's what we're having here in the DC area. So we're still open for registration. And then the previous day before that workshop, there's an opportunity to visit the Library of Congress as well as the Congressional Cemetery. So those are the big upcoming events that we have for next week.
just a quick find where Lacey stood there and she didn't hear what I had commented on. I think the Bitty Bao logo looks just like you, Lacey. It's perfect.
Very happy.
But one of the things is that we are planning to have a conference on education conference, and we want to talk about books and concepts by which people are doing things. And at some point, we'll talk about further about maybe inviting you guys over to participate in that conference. But one of the things I'm particularly interested in making sure that it's not that the librarian. I know, for example, tomorrow I'm going to talk to the librarian, the acquisition people, and says you should get this set of books in, because I know they have the type of programs that you may not have noticed that these here. But I think that having that kind of conference where we can help you expose to that kind of system is something good for us and good for y'all. And I like to encourage this. Is great. And I love to wow. So
Oh, thank you. Well, we would definitely be interested in that. So you know where to find us.
Bringing great minds like yours together, educators who are creating materials that could benefit the mainstream school system.
Yes, no, yeah, we would love any contact like that. We do a lot of, professional developments for Lulu just did a big one for early education centers. We've done ones for parents as well. So, we're very flexible in how we support others. So definitely would love to be connected and help you all plan some great events.
That'd be great. Thank you. Thank you, Lacey.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day.
Stay in touch,
Yeah.
Bye.
Zoom today. Thank you for your time as well.
Bye.